Hello and welcome. You read the title. Today we are playing Clash Royale 100 times. And yes, I am kind of borrowing Luca Noble's idea, but a lot of other people have also done that, so it shouldn't matter too much. Anyway, let's not waste time and just get it started. But first, we need to give Supercell our personal information. And as everyone knows, I am well over the age of 60 and currently in a nursing home playing Clash Royale. Okay, now we are in a tutorial where I'm going to be getting a few things straight. Number 1, I am not counting the tutorial levels as a game. Only Trophy Road will count. Number 2, I am not joining a clan. This is because I want to see how far I can get without anyone else's help. And number 3, this whole challenge is really kind of an experiment. I want to see what the win rate of a somewhat skilled person will be if they made a new account and played Clash Royale all over again. With that out of the way, I finished the first 2 training matches and made the most beautifully handcrafted name Clash Royale has ever seen. Sir Dumpfart the Fort. This name will strike fear into anyone unfortunate enough to see it on the top left of their screens. Anyway, I finished the tutorial and made my way to our first official matchup, game number 1. Our first opponent went by the name of Freaky Robert. I started off with a mini P.E.K.K.A, followed up by a knight and a musketeer in the back. This was a decent push, and let us chip away at one of the princess towers until finally the king tower was at a measly 8 HP. So I did what any other man would do and used a few arrows on it, and that ended the match. Game 2 was much of the same. Get the first tower, then the king tower. These first matches are going to be like this since Clash Royale is either throwing bots at you or real people who just downloaded the game. In game 3, I used the giant musketeer combo. This allows the musketeer to hide behind the giant and shoot at the tower. This worked well and got us to victory. Game 4, nothing new, just winning. Game 5, I won without taking any tower damage, which is pretty cool. The same thing happened in game 6 and 7. And no, we are not making 6-7 jokes on this channel. I know some of you were thinking it, and shame on you. I'm kidding, you guys are awesome, especially if you subscribe. Wink wink. Game 8, I did take damage and a lot too, but not enough to stop Sir Dumpfart the Fort. Game 9, we were up against Compa Pollo. I'm pretty sure one of those words mean chicken. Anyway, the match was the first that was slightly challenging, as there was a lot of back and forths in terms of attacking and defending. And Mr. Pollo here got me a bit nervous by taking down my tower first. But not to worry, that wasn't enough to stop Sir Dumpfart the Fort. Game 10 was the last game of this arena, and also the most difficult. Mr. Shad here was giving me a hard time, and the whole game was a back and forth of attacking and defending. This went all the way into overtime, but eventually I got enough pressure on his defense and clobbered his tower. Game 11, I won, because that's what Sir Dumpfart the Fort does. Game 12, my opponent gave me some trouble and got my tower down to about 200 health, but I still snatched the win. Game 13, I was up against Lemonade, who was a professor in defense. I just could not reach his tower no matter what, and with this immaculate defense, he got a lot of damage on both my towers and managed to destroy them too. Yup, Sir Dumpfart the Fort had experienced his first loss, and it was a devastating one too. But remember, having the bitter taste of defeat in your mouth only makes victory sweeter. Sun Tzu, I think. I don't know. I won games 14, 15, and 16 with relative ease because most of them were probably robots. But game 17 was a bit different. I got an early tower, but my opponent responded with damaging my tower a lot. It eventually came to a standstill where I was defending and he was attacking. And in the end, he attempted to hit my tower with a fireball as a last resort. If it were a higher level fireball, then I would have been cooked, literally. Game 18 was an easy one. All I did was push the opponent, so he had no choice but to hold back my troops. And remember, offense is the best defense. Game 19, I got the guy's king tower to a measly 2 HP. I was contemplating whether I should drag out the battle, but Sir Dumpfart the Fort is noble and honorable, does not play around with his food. Game 20 was against I'm not even gonna try to pronounce that. Anyway, the dude used up his elixir on too many buildings and ended up sealing his fate. Game 21 was our first game in Barbarian Bowl, and we were up against one of the worst Call of Duty games. Not only did it flop in terms of sales, but also in its defense. Game 22, I won the game without my opponent even touching any of my towers. Game 23 was one of my shortest matches and lasted under a minute. Maybe I should do a Clash Royale speedrun video. Let me know in the comments if you guys would want to see that. I don't know. Game 24, I was matched up with none other than Luke Skywalker. He did put up a good fight and got one of my towers low, but unfortunately in this match the force was not with him. Game 25, I was up against Sussy Cake. Yeah, that has to be a 5-year-old. And turns out they play like a 5-year-old as well. In game 26, my opponent got my tower first. Not off to a great start, but as the saying goes, it's not about how you start the race, it's about how you finish. Game 27, I won, but no 3 crown. Game 28, my opponent was actually conscious, so it was a back and forth of attacking defending once again at the bridge. But eventually I got past and took down the tower. Game 29, I think the guy I'm up against was in Naruto, but that doesn't matter because this is Clash Royale, there are no ninjas here. Game 30, I won. Game 31, I also won. Game 32, my opponent's defense was pretty good, but not good enough. In game 33, I got the first tower and defended until I won. Game 34, I did pretty much the same thing, except for some reason I was really trolling the dude. Game 35 was my new fastest game, which lasted a little under 40 seconds. Game 36, we made it to the Spell Factory. Woohoo! Anyway, my tower was down first because he sent out a mini P.E.K.K.A. and I had no elixir to defend it. I tried my best to get back at him, but his defending was just too good and he wouldn't budge. Game 37, both me and my opponent had our towers low, but I got his lower. And at the last second, I burnt his princess tower to a crisp. Game 38, pretty much the same thing happened. We were well into overtime and my tower was low, his was lower, fireball, win. Game 39, my opponent defended fairly well, but thanks to my highly complex strategy of spamming giant and battle ram on the bridge, I squeaked out the win. Game 40 was the beginning of Sir Dumbfart the Fourth's downfall. I did get an okay amount of damage on his tower, but his goblin and minion spamming on the bridge is what gave him the win. Game 41 was even worse. It came to a situation where both our towers were about the same health, but despite my best efforts, he countered my battle ram rush and took down my tower with arrows. Game 42, I managed to get the first tower and he got mine back, but don't worry, it should be fine. Excuse me, Mr. President, can I have you for a second? Yeah, what is it? I'm in the middle of climbing ladder right now. So like, they got the second tower. Wait, they've hit the second tower? Yeah, he just built up a push and took down my other tower. And I didn't have enough time to get his back, so I lost. Game 43, I thought I could win, but my opponent sent out an entire army against my poor princess tower. And he did that with only a few seconds left, which sealed my fate. Game 44, my internet disconnected mid-match. When I came back, I expected him to 3-crown me once I re-logged in, but surprisingly, he just got my first tower, and somehow, even with that disadvantage, I still won. Also, quick update, I made it to 1,000 trophies. Let's go! As a way to celebrate this milestone, you guys should like and subscribe. Every little bit of it helps. And it's a free way you can tell me that you actually like what I'm putting out. Anyway, game 45, I built up a massive push and then 3-crown. Game 46, he got my tower, I returned the favor. It went into sudden death where I got a sneaky battle ram in the pocket. Game 47, I lost to a well-placed battle ram. Game 48, my opponent was spamming a lot of goblins and minions, but I got his tower and defended until then. Game 49, I almost got the 3-crown. I was just one hit away. Game 50, we are halfway there. This match wasn't anything special, just a generic win, you know. Game 51, this guy had me defending for dear life, and despite my best efforts, he still managed to win. Game 52, I took down both towers and won. Game 53, I was up against TM. Do I know what that stands for? No. But what I do know is that I won. Game 54, I took a tower, then took another. Game 55, this guy misspelled hello, probably why he lost. Game 56, this guy took my tower and defended really well. Also, his clan name had his clan ID, which is kind of a genius advertising technique. Anyways, I lost. Game 57, Luke Skywalker, who we previously defeated, has somehow resurrected and has taken the alias of Lucky Skywalker and is now seeking vengeance. He fought well, but Sir Dumbfart the Fort will not be bested by a dude who betrayed his own people for some play. Game 58, this guy got my tower by sending a barrage of troops. He had the audacity to laugh at me while doing it. The utter disrespect of these people, man. Game 59, I did a giant and wizard combo, which did the job pretty well and defended for the win. Game 60, we made it to the builder's workshop and won too. First impressions matter. Game 61, barbarians are the best. Game 62, we got the Hog Rider, one of my favorite cards. But unfortunately, we couldn't put him to good use since our opponent was just pushing way too aggressively. Game 63, I was faced off with none other than the Diddler himself. I don't really know how he's playing Clash Royale in prison, but that doesn't matter. I believe his screen was covered in baby oil, because that's probably why it was such an easy win. Here's game 64. 64 is probably one of the best numbers of all time. It's the amount of blocks in a stack in Minecraft. The Nintendo 64 has a number in its name, and your computer, yes, your computer, is probably running a 64-bit operating system. Anyway, the dude I faced off with was definitely smurfing on an alt account, because there is no way someone who just started this game is this good at defending. This guy wouldn't let me touch his tower, like a polar bear won't let you go near its baby. It was a long fight, but he got the win by guarding a mini P.E.K.K.A behind a giant and took me down on the last second of overtime. Game 65, this guy got both my towers extremely low and finished me off just when overtime started. Game 66, got the first tower, got the second, and with a little bit of time left, got the third. Okay, so we have already established that we are not going to be making any 6-7 jokes on this channel, okay? Okay, anyway, game 67 was not too special, just like the meme itself. It just ended with my opponent being a tower down from mine and me defending. Game 68, it was a really long battle and I got his tower first, but he could have easily put the game in overtime seeing as my tower was really low. Game 69. Nice. But what wasn't nice was how I lost without even taking down one single tower. Game 70, I lost in pretty much the same way. Game 71, almost got the 3 crown. Game 72, my internet bugged out again and lost me a game that I should have won. Game 73, my Hog Rider just soloed the tower and finished it off. Too bad it's only level 5 though. It's kind of hitting like a rubber toy. Game 74, barbarians plus wizard equal 3 crown. Game 75, I got an early tower and pressed the enemy into defending. When the game was about to be over, he tried to make a last ditch effort and hit my tower with the rocket, but it just was not enough. Game 76, I lost to DJ Khaled. Game 77, I was against Wolverine 35. One has to wonder what kind of thought process went into that name. That doesn't matter though, since I won. Game 78, I was up against Pasta, and just like any other food, I ate him. Game 79, next guy up is Davey. One more letter to his name, and a body might appear at the back of his Tesla. We duked it out until the end, where he had more tower health than me, and won. Game 80, next up is Big Boss, and his name does not lie. He won. Game 81, Mini P.E.K.K.A and Hog Rider, good combo. Game 82, my next opponent was the one and only Julius Caesar. Unfortunately, his battle tactics are not as good in Clash Royale, and I reduced him to a mascot for overpriced pizza. Game 83, I got Thing 1 and Thing 2, nice. Game 84, we jumped the king and ran his pockets. That's why you don't walk down O block after 9 o'clock. Game 85, I was up against someone from the clan of Canadians. And since he is Canadian, he was nice enough to just hand me the win. Game 86, next game I was versing Pablo Escobar. Unfortunately, I think he might have been on that white sugary stuff that he moves, and that's what caused him to lose the game. Game 87, I had a mini P.E.K.K.A and he had no elixir. I think you know what happened. Game 88 was a win, and so was Game 89. Game 90, I was up against Danny, which is that one game developer that disappeared and never came back. I guess he decided to become a pro Clash Royale player because I got Game 91, I was playing against Amar of the Sigmi clan. Yeah, they definitely misspelled Sigma. I would know because I have brain rot. Anyway, I got cooked by him. Update, I just figured out that pollo does in fact mean chicken, and that is who we faced off against in game 92. This time, I was the one that got fried. Game 93, my adversary was Jack. I wouldn't be surprised if he somehow had associations with a female named Jill, who he scaled a hill to extract a pail full of 2 hydrogen molecules and 1 oxygen molecule. Long story short, he won and laughed at my face. Don't worry though, because I took my anger out in game 94. Game 95, I was up against B4, which is right here on a chessboard. And just like in chess, I won by cornering his king. Game 96, I lost. I don't know what else to say. Game 97, I was up against a Clash Royale user, which means their IQ is well below 20. I absolutely trampled him and showed that money does not always equal power. Game 98, this guy begged for mercy before I melted his tower with a fireball. Game 99, I was up against Clash Man. Unfortunately, he did not live up to his name. Maybe his cousin John Clash will continue the legacy. Game 100, we made it. After a little bit of back and forth, I eventually decimated his towers and got the win. Just like how you should decimate that subscribe button. Okay, that was cringe, my bad. But if you did enjoy this video and want to support me, then please do a brother a favor and subscribe. Also, for anyone wondering, I had 76 wins and 34 losses, which is not bad considering I did this all on PC, which is a lot less comfortable than mobile. Anyway, this has been quite the journey. This is Waffle Knight signing off.